can't tell you how pleased I am that there are so many of you here. I can't tell you how pleased I am to see that map of local authority champions. It's a donut with a pretty big hole in the middle of it, but we will fill it. And I know you're not just here for lunch, but the social food fair is a thing of great beauty. And Melanie said, with a heavy heart, I did have to accept that my ministerial responsibilities included accepting food from every counter on my last visit. The bread is sublime. The macaroons are amazing. Enjoy. There is much to look forward to, but between then and now, lots of words. I know my place. I'm just here as the warm-up act for Chris White. But I thought it might be helpful for you just to have a sense of how central government sees social value and the Social Value Act. I'd like to tell you that when the Act landed on my desk, that there was a huge roar of approval across Whitehall. There wasn't. In fact, they lined up outside my office, po-faced civil servants coming in to say, well, Minister, very worthy, but lots of complications with this, lots of difficulties with this. And actually the problem that we had to wrestle with is exactly the problem that many local authorities, to be fair, will wrestle with. Because actually what they came in to say is actually at this time, Minister, what we're trying to do is send really strong signals to people spending public money about the need to have really lean, efficient, fast, cheap processes designed to get the best possible result for the taxpayer. And they're extremely sincere in this desire, and I respect their work enormously because it's these same people who, through their effort and energy in Whitehall and changing how Whitehall buys things from really badly to something approaching competence, is saving us all billions of pounds a year, literally. So we should respect where they are coming from. But I push back on this for three reasons. One, there was a voice in my head said that we must not equate buying things for the lowest possible price as being the same thing as securing best value. Secondly, I had in my constituency a live example of how commissioning could be genuinely intelligent. And I clung to that as they lined up to tell me how difficult this was. And some of you may have heard me talking about this before, but we have a social enterprise in my area called Blue Sky. And they have a nice strapline. They say we're the only company in the country where you have to have a criminal record to work. And they do something very simple. They employ people coming out of jail. And they have been delivering a contract for Hillingdon Council to manage the public spaces using these offenders. And everything worked. Council got a great service at a good price. And offenders got the chance to prove to a future employer that they could be trusted. And you know as well as I do that prison places cost us about £40,000 a year, and reoffending rates are around 2/3. Totally unacceptable. Reoffending rates, Blue Sky, around 1/3. So you work it out for yourself. This is smart commissioning. Lots of complications about where that value accrues and all that. But the voice in my head said, that is intelligent commissioning, and we should be encouraging more of that. And then the third voice in my head was, I thought, Chris is onto something here, because I felt here there was a big idea whose time had come, because I could see that this was going with the grain of things that I could observe, big sort of structural changes going on inside the public sector, but also in society, which I felt this was going with the grain of. And in terms of the public sector piece, you know that the fundamental challenge that we face, whether it's central government, local government, or any aspect of the public sector ecosystem, we've got the same challenge. How do we meet the public's demand for better services when we've got less public money? And for me, that's quite clear. Business as usual is not an option, and part of our role of government is to try and create the space, create conditions, create the right signals that it's okay to try new things, that it's important to break down the silos, that models of cooperation become more and more important, and we need to go beyond just talking about them to making them real, that it's absolutely critical to reach out, to work with new people, to work with the social sector and tap into all the knowledge, the expertise, the experience, the can-do that exists inside the social enterprise movement and the wider social sector. This is all now and real and relevant and pressing, and I felt this act could help in terms of reinforcing those messages. But also, I just felt that, and I feel this stronger every month that goes on that I am in this job and going around the country and feeling this, is something is changing in society in terms of our attitude towards social values. And no one understands this more than the business community, because they're wrestling with a very big word at the moment, trust, and how to regain it. And more of them, because they come into my office and tell me all the things they're doing, are now thinking very seriously about how do we prove to people that we are good citizens, that we care about the communities that we serve. So some of the principles around social value are not restricted to the public sector. They are alive and vibrant and being discussed inside the private sector as well. And we need to capture this moment and send a strong signal, yes, that we care about this and that this is right. And that's why I dug in on the Social Value Act, and we persevered, and we had to compromise, but we got it onto the statute book and sent the signal to commissioners, to people spending public money: we expect you to consider social values, to consider the social environmental implications of your purchase decisions at the start of your processes. And I've always been quite clear that what I didn't want, failure, would be if this was just seen as another bureaucratic burden imposed by central government who don't understand what it's like around here, and just a piece of paper that sits in a tray. We'd have failed. And so what I said right from the start to Chris and to anyone who cared to listen is that what we've got to do is work with people who are genuinely inspired by this legislation to create a movement around it, not just restricted to the social enterprise movement, but embracing local authority champions, embracing champions across the public sector, embracing champions across, for example, the housing association movement. Because I remember having a meeting here with a housing association and said, we faced all the same difficulties you did. We had finance directors saying, oh, well, when embracing these values mean that we'll have to end up paying more. But actually what they found out is by sending a signal to their supply chain that they expected their supply chain to be visible contributors to the community. The supply chain embraced it and said, we want this. We want the opportunity to show what we're doing in terms of support for community. Thank you for this opportunity. No additional cost. And so what we need to do is, as I said, to try and build and create this movement, not just social enterprises, not just public procurement officials, but we've got banks, we've got lawyers, create some momentum behind this. And the other thing I really, really needed, and we really need, is leadership. And I'm looking to the West Midlands for a number of reasons. One, over the years have been really alive and excited to just how much buzz there is around the social enterprise movement in this area, not in no least due part to the efforts of Melanie and Sarah and everyone involved in advocating social enterprise in this area. But as Chris will talk about, such a rich heritage in Birmingham and beyond in terms of strong civic values, strong municipal leadership. The fact that you've got 33 local authorities across the area spending £16 billion a year. That is scale, but also critically, ladies and gentlemen, because you're embracing it already. I was reading about the examples in Birmingham City Council, for example, partnering with Think Venue in 2009. Classic case, City Council spending a lot of money on venue spaces, changed their policy to think about creating more social value and partnering with Think Venue, a venue finding directive for social enterprise organisations, not-for-profit organisations. And the money flowed in a different direction and created a great deal more value as a result. I was reading about housing and care organisation Midlands Heart, and what they've done to proactively work with social enterprise and change their commissioning arrangements, their tendering arrangements, to break what they were doing up into smaller contracts that were more accessible for social enterprises. I was impressed by what I read about Newcastle Under-Lyme Borough Council and what they're doing in terms of developing a toolkit to support social enterprise. This is exactly what we need to see. So I'm really, in part, here to congratulate you on the leadership that's already being shown here, but to encourage you to show more, because you're ahead of other areas. Please be assured, finally, ladies and gentlemen, that government is not just sitting back. You know, there is a tendency, we negotiate the laws, we write the laws, we pat ourselves on the back for passing them, and then we just sort of sit back and expect stuff to happen, and then scratch our heads in a few years' time and wonder why nothing happened. We're not doing that with this, even though it was a private member's bill, we supported it. In supporting it, we will continue to advocate for it, which is why I'm delighted that we can announce today that we've asked Chris White to accept a formal role on behalf of the government as an ambassador for social value, to go around the country working in other areas to inspire and to inform and to try and build this movement out. And I'm absolutely delighted that Chris has decided to accept it. But we're also doing a lot, ladies and gentlemen, to work round this act, to try and create the conditions to make all this stuff easier. So I was really delighted to hear Unity Bank talking about their appetite for lending. One of the things we got going for us is that we are encouraging, developing, and it's becoming real and relevant, this growing movement called social investment of money that is genuinely interested in blending financial return with a social impact. And this is real, and it's not just happening in the UK. The Prime Minister, to his credit, last week asked us to organise a special event as part of the G8 to discuss social investment. And the interest in other countries was enormous, and they recognised that we are leading the world in terms of developing this concept, which if we succeed and make it real and prove it, will move serious money into the social sector. And this is real. Last week, Big Society Capital, an organisation of which we're very proud, and Big Lottery announced that they're going to work together to create a fund that is going to distribute £250 million over the next 10 years in supporting communities to take over assets, to run assets, to develop assets, community assets fund. This is now all becoming very real. We're desperately trying to create the space for local authorities to innovate and create the space to try new things. You will have heard of an instrument called a social impact bond. They're bloody complicated. They take ages to deliver. We're desperately trying to make them easier to understand and easier to set up. We're working with Birmingham to try and create one here. There are now 13 around the country. But critically, what they do is they create the space for risk capital come in and back social organisations to try new interventions and to make it possible and much easier for commissioners to accept that. So let's embrace that as a piece of innovation that is motivated by a desire to try and encourage the social innovation that we need. We know that commissioners need a lot of help. You know that. You deal with them. You know that this is a journey for them as well. One of the things we've done, we've just started, is set up a commissioning academy where we're inviting commissioners from all sectors in the public space to come in and share their experiences and work together. They're all senior commissioners. They're all about to engage in a live commissioning exercise. And what we do is bring them together to learn from each other. The response has been absolutely fantastic, and the Social Value Act is front and central in terms of a module that we present to them so that we know that they understand the opportunity that it presents. We also want to work with the sector, try and make it easier for the sector to engage with this. So we're running a series of masterclasses across the country. So there's a lot of energy around this. There's a lot of commitment to back Chris's initiative for all the reasons I explained. My plea is this, and my final word is this. Please, let's work together on this. We need to share success. We need to share failure. We need to share frustrations, because we want to make this work. We need to break the ice together and work together to usher in a new era of genuinely intelligent commissioning, where those spending our money have a genuine understanding of what is really needed, have worked harder to create a more diverse, marketplace of suppliers who understand what is needed, who are motivated by social value, and create it much easier to do what Melanie says, which is just to make sure that every pound of our money goes as far as it possibly can to help the people that we serve. And that is ultimately what the Social Value Act is about, creating the conditions for people to make the public pound work as hard as possible. Thank you very much.